country, it ain't music.
You want to go see Willie Nelson?
I saw that. I don't think I'll be. Sorry, I can't go to that meeting on Friday. I would love to. But I'll be in Colorado.
That's okay. Harvey is going to go anyway.
Yeah.
So I would have backed out if Harvey was going to go and you wanted to go.
I have some ideas I can forward over to Victor or Harvey, but.
Good. Get the ideas to him because we need all the ideas right now.
There's a few things I've been thinking about.
It's I'm gonna call. I emailed Cosmo. He didn't respond. So I went through my cards today, my business cards today, and I found his with his cell phone on it. So I'm gonna call him.
Rocket Farms?
Yeah.
I emailed him too. Also nothing.
Nothing back?
Nothing.
Okay, so I'm gonna call him and just ask him.
What's my name? George, right?
What?
George Cosley.
No, not George.
Is that the owner?
Henry. Could be Bob. I don't know. Anyway,
I can tell you for sure. Talking rocket. Maybe it is him. I just happen to have my Rocket Farms. Charles got that's it. Yeah. Yeah, he might have some thoughts.
And then there was that job fair, which we got out to, I got that information to Joaquin and Belinda.
what's that?
There was a job fair, that was that they needed, they were looking for 500 different people that they needed to hire in San Mateo County. And so I sent it to them. I don't know how many people could go over the hill or whatever.
Well, we're planning on having one. That's part of
The
the plan.
local one? Yeah.
Is to have a local one,
Right.
and the chamber is supposed to be arranging that.
Which is good. I was like, here's something, they're hiring 500 people.
Right.
Now the farm next door to Rocket, where is on the board of.
Which one is that? There's another one right there?
Yeah, and I think if we could get mid-pen to talk to them. Because a lot of those folks, I thought someone said only actually 60 people.
I want to welcome you all to the October 1st, 2019 City Council meeting. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone,
Here.
Councilmember Penrose,
Here.
Councilmember Reddick, Vice Mayor Eisen,
Here.
Mayor Rohrbeck.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have one card, a public forum. Anybody else who wants to speak about an item not on the agenda is welcome to hand in a blue card and speak. Justin Stockman.
I think we got it. Perfect.
Oh, good.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me just a moment. I wanted to speak to a couple items. First of all, I wanted to sincerely thank you as a council for the survey you put out last week regarding the improvements on Poplar. I know that's been on the agenda in the past. I think that's such a welcome change for government in general to be looking for that kind of feedback. I think it's really going to lead into a successful product. The other thing I wanted to thank you for, and I know it's still in motion, is what's being done to prepare for Pumpkin Festival, especially in the wake of the incident that happened at the Garlic Festival in Gilroy. I know there's likely things you can't yet talk about that are being done to prepare. I'd just like to ask that at the end, we look into putting together something for the community to explain what was done and what was successful, and that we use it as an opportunity to continue to improve that process within the city. Finally, I'm not speaking to the item on the agenda, but I wanted to expressly thank you for taking time with Measure I. I want to thank the ability of the city to look at that and see that government needs to work together. I know you're not advocating for it, you're simply passing a resolution. However, I think the future of Half Moon Bay is dependent upon our disparate government agencies finding commonalities and finding ways to work together to be successful. That includes, yes, the city and the school district, but absolutely the fire district, sewer, water, parks, harbor, everything. We're continually asked to do more with less. If we're going to do that, we have to find that common ground to work together. Thank you very much. I need to get my daughter Annabelle home so that she can go to school at El Granada Elementary tomorrow morning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Justin, and thank you for your support. The next item on the agenda is a proclamation about LGBTQ history, and I believe Jessica Blair, our city clerk, is going to make the proclamation.
I'd like to introduce Jeannie from Coast Pride. She'll be accepting the proclamation tonight. The City of Half Moon Bay is proud to partner with the school district and Coast Pride to celebrate LGBTQ History Month. We have flyers on the table over here that outline all of the activities taking place over the next month. And I will read our proclamation. Whereas members of the City Council support the rights, freedoms, and equality of those who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer. And whereas the California Legislature adopted AB 677, encourages state agencies to collect voluntary self-identification information on sexual orientation and gender identity and expression. Whereas the City Council recognizes that SOGI data and training promotes welcoming communities by ensuring inquiry in a non-discriminatory and respectful manner and improving understanding of LGBTQ needs. Whereas the City Council recognizes that without the collection of SOGI data, this population is invisible to service providers, and that this invisibility can mask disparities and impede the provision of important services for LGBTQ individuals in a variety of settings. And whereas all residents, employees, and those who visit Half Moon Bay deserve to feel welcome, included, and have access to LGBTQ inclusive services. Whereas a number of LGBTQ historical events and people of all races have contributed to the history of equality for all people. Whereas LGBTQ individuals have made and continue to make lasting contributions to strengthen the fabric of American society. Whereas October holds historical significance because in October 1979, the first LGBTQ National March on Washington occurred, marking the 10th anniversary of the Stonewall Riots, and also in October 1988, the first National Coming Out Day was celebrated, and every year on October 11th, National Coming Out Day and annual LGBT Awareness Day is observed. Whereas the month of October has been established to remind all cultures within our wider community of the important roles LGBTQ people have taken in shaping the social, historical, legal, and political worlds we live in today. Whereas the City Council appreciates and recognizes the importance of LGBTQ History Month as an effective means of educating and calling to action the citizens of the City of Half Moon Bay to work together by fighting prejudice and discrimination in their own lives. Whereas in 2019, the City of Half Moon Bay has started a conversation with our community, Coast Pride, Cabrillo Unified School District leadership, the Half Moon Bay Chamber of Commerce, and other civic leaders who will join together in an effort to honor LGBTQ rights, uniting us all in a social justice platform to uphold the rights of all people. And whereas increasing visibility, raising awareness about LGBTQ history and SOGI fosters a welcoming and inclusive community where LGBTQ residents, employees, and visitors can feel welcome and included, live their authentic lives, and be treated with dignity and respect. Now, therefore, be it known that the City Council of Half Moon Bay does hereby recognize, support, celebrate, and honor October as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Questioning History Month. Signed October 1st, 2019, by Harvey Rohrbeck, our mayor.
Thank you, Council. On behalf of myself and Coast Pride, we're very thankful for this. We're becoming visible in the city, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
We appreciate it too.
Yes, we do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to hear a presentation from the county about the Census 2020 presentation.
Just going to wait for the PowerPoint. Excellent. Thank you, Mayor Rohrbeck, council members, and city staff. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you today. My name is Megan Gosh. I work for the San Mateo County Manager's Office of Community Affairs, and we are working to ensure a complete and accurate count of all residents in San Mateo County, regardless of citizenship status. So tonight, I'm just going to go over a little bit about what is the census. I'm sure everyone knows what it is, but why does it matter? Where are our populations of hard to count? And what is our strategy to make sure everyone is counted? So what is the census? Every 10 years, the United States government is required to count every person living in the United States. So it's different than the American Community Survey, which happens yearly, and that's more of a representative sampling. The decennial census counts every single person. And it happens every 10 years. Each household is asked to complete a survey form, and the information is only reported as statistics. And the next census day, which is considered April 1st, is 181 days from today. It's 6 months from today. So that's a big deal. What is the data used for? It helps fund our most critical programs, such as child care, WIC, foster care, school lunches, as well as transportation projects. It helps community leaders and businesses make informed decisions based on the data that is collected. And it also ensures that all residents are represented fairly in local, state, and national government. So what will it ask? There's only 10 questions on this survey. So it begins with information about each household, the number of people living there, whether they own or rent their home, and their phone number. And then for each person living in the household, regardless if they are family members or not, there'll be a series of questions that are asked, such as name, sex, age, date of birth, and race and ethnicity. And as of right now, and we're pretty confident, I'd say 99.9% confident, there will be no citizenship status question. So they're already printing, we're good to go on that. So how is the data kept private? The U.S. Census Bureau takes security very, very seriously. Each staff member at the Bureau takes an oath for life to protect the data, and if they share any of the information within any department within the federal government or any other person, it is a federal crime. You could have a fine up to $250,000 as well as a federal prison sentence. And then they're also protecting their personal data. They're using new computer technologies for this new online census. They have security procedures, and again, they're only reporting information as statistics. When will this occur? Starting in mid-March, people will receive invitations to participate in the census in the mail. Some 88% of our county will be asked to respond online, And then in April, you'll start getting reminders in the mail. There'll be about 4 reminders, and after that, then everyone will receive a paper version if you have not yet filled it out. There'll be a couple more reminders, and then at that time is when non-response follow-up Census Bureau folks will come door to door to ask you to fill out your survey. So we are really recommending that most individuals fill it out on their own time, self-responding, so that they don't have to worry about anyone coming to their house. This year, the paper version will only be in Spanish and English, and that's new. It's previously been in Chinese as well. But there will be online 12 languages plus English, and then additionally, there'll be 59 language guides to assist folks. So really, what's at stake? There's a lot at stake. There's a tremendous amount of federal funds. California receives about $77 billion a year in federal financing. So that goes, like I said, to our most critical programs. Each person counted equates to roughly $1,000 per year for the next 10 years. It's extremely significant if there's an undercount. As of right now, some surveys have shown that the expected response rate will be about 60%. That is a huge deficit in our funding, and so it's so important that we have everyone counted. And it's not just funding, it's also about redistricting. All of our districts are based upon the data. We may lose 1 congressional seat in the state of California, which is extremely important. And then again, it represents all of our community segments. So what are we doing, San Mateo County? Well, did you know that 3 out of every 4 Californians belong to 1 or more groups that tend to be undercounted? You'll hear that word a lot, undercounted, hard to count. What does that mean exactly? So it's people of color, it's immigrants, it's households with low income, low English proficiency. Children under 5 are the hardest to count population in the entire nation, and also homeless and housing unstable. So San Mateo County is home to many of these groups. 35% of our county residents are foreign-born. 47% speak a language other than English at home. If you compare that to just the Halfmoon Bay area, 25% of your residents are foreign-born. 33% of your residents speak a language other than English at home. Those numbers may be a little bit questionable, and that's what an undercount would show us, is that if we don't think those numbers are accurate, not everyone's being counted. So we're going to work very closely together to ensure that we have a fair count. If you look at the map of San Mateo County overall, I've mapped where these hard-to-count populations are located, and they're pretty much across the entire county. They're in 13 of our 20 cities, as well as unincorporated areas. And there's also new challenges that are unfolding this year. So the U.S. Census Bureau has underfunded this survey. They have fewer local offices, and they're hiring less non-response follow-up individuals. And as I'd mentioned before, 88% of the county is moving to online. You can still request a paper version. It'll just be slower to come to you, but they really want people to do it online first, which raises concerns about data security, digital access, and literacy barriers. And then there's a fear and lack of trust in the federal government. There's concerns about this data privacy. And even though the citizenship question is not on the survey, it's already raised a tremendous amount of anxiety among our immigrant communities. So what are we doing? We are working at all levels of the government. We meet with our census partnership once a month. We have our state census office regional directors as well that we have biweekly calls with. We are coordinating very closely with all the counties in the Bay Area. United Way Bay Area has been awarded a contract from the state, and so they are coordinating efforts across 7 Bay Area counties. We want to make sure the same message is heard across the county. And then we're also working very closely with our cities. And so we have all types of resources and toolkits that we are providing to folks. And collaboration. So starting in December of last year, we formed our steering committee. And this is made up of our county department heads, managers of cities with high populations of hard-to-count individuals, as well as representatives from our county elected officials. This committee provides guidance, coordination, and support. And then in January of this year, we formed our Complete Count Committee, which is comprised of stakeholders across sectors. Members serve diverse population segments, and we co-chair this committee with Thrive, the Alliance of Nonprofits, and SAMSETA. We broke off from our Complete Count Committee and we formed strategy work groups. So these were individual groups focused on specific concerns about the census. For example, technology group. We're looking at how can we provide computer access, broadband access to folks who don't have it currently. Specifically, in the coast is an issue. So we can have questionnaire assistance centers that we're setting up. We'll have kiosks and libraries. There's all types of information that we are creating, or toolkits that will then be pressed out through our community action team regions. So we broke the county into 8 regions based upon demographics and geography. And then we, our first RFP that is currently closed, we're in contracting right now, we had up to $800,000. So we wanted community-based organizations to lead a specific community action team. And so they will be educating, motivating, and activating our residents. They're working with other community-based organizations within their region. And then they're also providing questionnaire assistance centers, which are staffed centers that will provide in-language support for individuals to fill out their surveys. We just released a couple weeks ago another RFP, and this is for up to $500,000. And these are called mini contracts. They're from like $1,000 to $30,000. And like the first RFP, this one is for not-for-profit applicants. So it's a broader, wider group of individuals that we're looking to reply. We really want smaller grassroots organizations like high school groups, parent committees, faith-based organizations. We want people to incorporate census into their everyday outreach. And this will close on October 9th. So we really need your support. Please spread the word about this RFP. I've sent it to every city manager in the county. I know Victor has it as well. We can put, if you have it on your website, that'd be wonderful. We have a widget that you can put on your website. Follow us on Twitter and share our information on social media. So this is our website. It's hard to see, but there's a pink box on the left-hand side. That's what you need to know. If you click on that, it brings up our outreach resources. We have videos, we have flyers, we have a narrated Census 101 video. We're just creating, right now we're just finishing a county employee video of 16 county employees talking in language about why the census is important. And also recruiting is huge. The U.S. Census Bureau right now is looking to hire 800 individuals in San Mateo County. Yeah. And for that to happen, they think they need about 5,000 applicants. So there's a lot of jobs available right now, and they're very well paying. They're $30 an hour, they're part-time, they're flexible. At this particular time, you have to be a citizen, but if they don't have a big enough pool, then they open it up to non-citizens. So I would highly recommend that people who are looking for jobs to apply for that. And then the last thing you could do, if you're so inclined, is we have created a text-based pledge. And so if you texted the word count to the number you see on the screen, you will be pledging to fill out your survey in April 2020. I'm sure everyone can't wait to do that. I don't see any phones out, but please do. And then share that information, and you can opt in if you want information to remind you that the survey is coming out. If you have any questions, we'll have a chat box on our website to answer questions. 211 will be providing support as well. Oh, and that's it.
Thank you so much. Council, does anyone have any questions or comments?
Yeah, so we just had I'm sure you're probably aware, but we had a flower business that just shut down, laid off about, well, it's continuing, I think, in the process, but about 300 people. Mm-hmm. And there are jobs. Can we give your name out as someone to contact, or how would you like us to go about kind of like facilitating people to apply for those jobs? So
on our website, there is a flyer. I can also send directly a flyer to Halfmoon Bay where to apply for those jobs, because it's not through me, it's through the U.S. Census Bureau. So I have nothing to do with the actual hiring, but I can point people in the right direction.
Yeah, would you kindly send that to our city manager, who can then get it out to the powers that be to make that information get out there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
It's really important that everyone does participate in this census for all the reasons you mentioned. So thank you for your presentation, and I hope the entire community understands the importance and the fact that there's not going to be a citizenship question on the census should make it less frightening to some of the people in our community. So thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have no special announcements. You're going to hear a couple of announcements that the city is going to make for upcoming meetings that I think will be of interest to the community. Catherine, do we have any report out from our recent closed session meeting?
Nothing to report out of tonight's closed session meeting. I will note that the item discussed was public employee performance evaluation, the annual performance evaluation of City Manager Bob Nisbet.
Thank you. We have 4 city manager updates, and I will turn that over to our city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We do have 4 updates. Matthew has come up to the podium, Deputy City Manager, to do the first one, and it is related to the closure of the Bay City Flour Company and the activity that's occurred since the council met 2 weeks ago. So Matthew will give a short update, and was also listening when the comment was made about the jobs with the Census Bureau.
Thank you, Bob. Yes, so as was noted by our Vice Mayor, Bay City Flour's announced on September 10th their closure. We know that they've laid off 60 people already, and the total layoff by the November 10th closure date will be close to 300 people. Many of those folks are farm workers, but there's also administrative staff and other types of workers as well. Since that date, the city's been actively engaged with our nonprofits and service providers here on the coast to try to support these displaced workers and provide them the services they need to get through the next couple of months, and most importantly, get them connected to jobs. So some of the activities that are going on, there is a weekly meeting between the city, the county, the Coastside core agencies, both Puente and Coastside Hope, which administer benefits on behalf of the county, and ALAS, the Chamber of Commerce, Youth Leadership Institute, and any other service providers that want to participate. And in these meetings, we're just constantly trying to get a handle on what's happening with the folks that have already been displaced, what the plan is for those that could be displaced in the future, and how we can best support those folks. So the first thing we're going to be doing is this Thursday here in this room from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. is a community services fair. And this will be the first of probably several of these types of events over the next couple of months. And the purpose of it, first and foremost, is to connect, especially this Thursday, those that have already been displaced with opportunities for jobs, support getting those jobs, which will be provided by the county and the Chamber of Commerce, services from general services, welfare support, to housing support, food. It's very holistic. We'll also have mental health services and folks from the county health department making sure that people understand what their health care options are if, in fact, they are having trouble finding employment. The idea is that we'll create a welcoming environment during the school day so that parents can drop their kids off at school and then come and join us here. We will have daycare on site for the younger children, provided by our recreation staff. We'll have warm food. And we really just want to make it an environment that allows people to come and get started down a path of getting the help that they need. Anecdotally, we know that some of these folks have already left to go find jobs other places. Gratefully, the Chamber has reached out to all of their members, and many of the local businesses have really stepped up and offered jobs to people who have been displaced. And that's already happening on its own, which is really fantastic. We're also working with the state EDD and the local workforce development agency, which is NOVA. It's a local nonprofit that contracts with the county. They'll have representation here to help folks understand what other options they have for employment. And again, the goal is to be able to provide services and support while these folks are displaced, and ultimately get them new jobs in our community. And that way we can retain these families and these individuals as members of our community. The core agencies have been coordinating on some survey so that they can gather some data. It's a pretty sensitive topic because of the status of some of these workers. And so that information will not be shared with the city other than some anecdotal kind of overarching themes. And that way people know that their information is being protected and it's being trusted to a trusted agency. Other than that, we're connecting things like the census jobs for those that could qualify. The county has a home health care worker program that is in desperate need of workers, and it's pretty well paying. And they'll be here to provide opportunities to folks. and any other opportunities to get people employed as soon as possible. You have any questions?
Questions? No, thank you, right? Yeah. Matthew, thank you very much. I think this is the first of more than one attempt to get jobs for people who really need them. We want these people to stay in the community. So as I've said before, money is not necessarily the solution. The solution is jobs, and this is the beginning of a really positive step. So thank you very much for organizing this and all these nonprofit organizations that are participating. So
yeah, it really is a collaborative effort with all the nonprofits, and I think everybody appreciates that, and they appreciate your leadership in those meetings. I did want to clarify also, though these events are targeted and developed for those folks that are being displaced or have been displaced from Bay City Flowers, they are open to anybody that is seeking these services, and we hope that we're able to provide help to as many people as possible. Thank you.
yeah. Debbie has a question.
So did the city provide the graphic assistance for these beautiful?
We were prepared to, but I believe this came from YLI or All Us. All Us stepped up. They've actually provided an intern who is the central point of contact for coordinating this event, and prepared this while we were kind of figuring out what we were going to do. So this is a great example of our community pulling together and resources from everywhere coming together. It's been a great project to work on, and hopefully the results are great, and then we can all feel good about it.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, our city engineer, Moz, will make a couple announcements of some construction projects that are going to be going on Highway 1.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, public, thank you tonight. I'm just going to talk briefly about a couple of updates on the Highway 1 corridor. First up is we just found out a little earlier today about a scheduled repaving of Highway 1 from Grandview Boulevard to Frenchman's Creek Road. Luckily, we found out through the Half Moon Bay review, and we've reached out to Caltrans to try to coordinate these things a little bit better in the future. It's coming up pretty quick. They're proposing to start work on October 6th, which is Sunday night, through October 10th, and it's proposing night work. So it would be from 7 p.m. till 5 a.m. Majority of the lanes will be closed. Only one lane will remain open, and traffic control on both ends. So there will be stop control on both sides, both the north and southbound, while the construction is going on. And with that, the requirement for the night closure is because, as we all know, the daytime for Highway 1 would be really, really tough to swallow. So that will be coming up soon, and we'll be working with Caltrans on coordination in the future. And then the next update on Highway 1 is our Highway 1 South Improvements Project. I'm happy to report that this Thursday night, the San Mateo County Transportation Authority's Board of Directors will be meeting to discuss funding allocation for our project, which is $3.2 million. This project, for folks that are not familiar, is at the south end of town, the southern end of town, at Main Street, Highway 1, and Higgins Canyon Road. And so we're looking forward to that meeting, and as soon as that approval is given to us, which we are expecting that to be the case, we're looking at the next steps, which would be November, coming back to the City Council for formal adoption of the grant agreement, and we'll be looking to advertise this project in November, December, which would put us in early spring to start construction.
Will that also include the gateway signage that we've talked about?
Yes, it will.
So I think it's going to be really important to get the information out about the repaving, like in our community newsletter. I'm sure everybody's already thought about it, but I just want to make sure we get it out there. Next door, wherever, but just.
Absolutely. Our communication staff has been working on it as well.
Next up, Public Works Director John Dowdy just has a quick announcement on our upcoming summer cleanout event.
Oh, baby. Clean it out. So this coming Saturday is our next summer clean out and recycling event. It happens to be in the fall, but I guess truth in advertising is a challenge there for you. But please come 9 to 1. It will be at Smithfield. So this includes e-waste recycling, the document shredding, and compost giveaway too. So this is your fall compost giveaway. So don't come to Main Street, City Hall, Kelly Avenue. Come out to Smithfield this Saturday, 9 to 1. So thank you. Questions?
Weston?
I hope not. Jennifer's got all the answers, not me. Oh, there you go.
So the source of the compost is from is it like the daily cover or the dump or something? Like, what is the source of the compost?
It's generated at, I believe this is actually coming back from Newbie. So it's now composted. It's sent off to, all the materials sent off by Republic to their Newbie Island facility in San Jose, where it's processed, and then it comes back as the compost.
So it's like green waste and compost food scraps, basically?
Yes.
Thank you, John.
Next up, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Jessica Blair will do a short presentation on how Elections Night Out went last week.
So last Tuesday.
In photos.
Yes, in photos. Last Tuesday, the city held its second annual Elections Night Out event. It was focused on voter registration and, most importantly, youth voter registration. Thank you to Mayor Rarbach and Councilmember Penrose for stopping by. Being a non-city election year, we had about half of the attendees that we had last year, but those who did attend enjoyed the event. We did have some youth pre-register to vote, as you can see in the pictures. Matthew and John were on hand and talked about Carter Park improvements and Frenchman's Creek with those in attendance. And I have been working with the assistant principal at the high school to coordinate on-campus registration drives throughout the school year. So hopefully by next year, all of our Halfmoon Bay 18-year-olds will be submitting ballots.
It'll be exciting.
Yeah.
Finally, Mr. Mayor, I have one last one. I get to do this one myself. It's my pleasure to introduce our newest employee. She's sitting in the back next to Matthew. Lisa Lopez is our new Director of Administrative Services. She started today, and if she would approach the podium, she can introduce herself to the community.
Hello, good evening, Council, Mayor. Thank you. My name's Lisa Lopez, and as Bob said, today was my first day joining the team of Halfmoon Bay. I'm really excited to be here. Since it's coming home for me. I used to live on the coast and work for San Mateo County, and unfortunately left, went to the East Bay, and I'm kind of done with the East Bay now. So made a wise decision to come join Bob's team, and today was a great day. Meeting the people that work here, meeting some people out in the community when I was walking around, it just as I remember it. My background, I come from the city of Emeryville, where I was the HR director, and although that was my title, I had a lot of different experiences because it's a small city. We had a lot of urban issues because we were between Oakland and Berkeley, but it also gave me a lot of opportunity to learn, which I hope to put that experience to good use here. So thank you, and thank you all for being so welcoming to me today, and I look forward to a great career here. Thank you.
It was a pleasure meeting you, Lisa. Does anybody wish to pull any item from the consent calendar? May I have a motion, please?
I'll move to accept the waiving of the reading of resolutions and ordinances, accept warrants for the month of August 2019, accept our fourth quarter financial report for fiscal year 2018-19, and pass an ordinance amending Chapter 1.30 Contributions and Loans to City Candidate Campaigns of the Halfmoon Bay Municipal Code, second reading.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Consent calendar passes. Item 2A is an appeal, and I've been informed that the appellant is unable to make it today, and I'd like to have a motion to continue this item till November 5th.
Correct. That's the recommended.
So
date.
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The appeal is continued till November 5th. The next item is a letter of intent related to the trail access on the Johnston House property, and I see our city manager is getting ready to present the report.
I am, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I decided I'd do the presentation here, see what it feels like at the podium from the audience's point of view.
I like it.
This microphone is very nice, very sensitive. A very short report tonight on this item, but a good one, I think. So the item before you today is an item to authorize the city manager, myself, to execute 2 non-binding letters of intent. We decided to put the items together. It was kind of a coincidence, I think, or maybe not. Maybe there are no coincidences in this world, I don't know, that they came together at the same time. The first one is one we've actually been working on with 2 partners, Mid-Penn and Post, probably 6 to 8 months, almost since the time I got here. And I'll go over that one first, and then I'll go to the next one, which, as you'll see, relates. I also want to note that Mike Williams from Mid-Penn is here. So he's here to be supportive and take any questions that you might have at the end. So going to the, I guess I got the control here. This is tough to see for the audience, but hopefully it's a little bit better on your screen. So this is an aerial shot, and I'm going to point it out for the members here, but you hopefully can see it on your screen. The property here to the right is known as the Johnston House property. This area to the west of it is being farmed right now. That's currently owned by Post, and that property actually extends to the south of the Johnston House property and also to the east of the Johnston House property. It's about 644 acres. Between Mid-Penn and Post, they're in the process of splitting, for lack of a better word, that property. A portion of it will stay with Post, and a portion of it will go to Mid-Penn, and that's why this is a 3-way deal. So what is hard to see on here, but I'll still point it out, is we're proposing to enter into an agreement where we exchange easements. It's one of those triple wins. It really does serve everyone, we feel. Post is in a situation where they're going to have this parcel be in agricultural production forever. There's a deed restriction on the parcel, and they will lease that parcel to a farmer. They're doing so now. And what they need is better access or secondary access to the parcel for the farmer. What Mid-Penn receives is the uplands portion of the 644 acres, and their plan is to work with us to coordinate the use of that parcel into the vision for the Johnston House parcel. And so their vision for that property is to construct a nature trail, and their request from us was that once that nature trail is constructed, that the staging area for it, or the parking lot where people would go, would be conjunctive use with the parking lot for the Johnston House. And so it did seem to make a lot of sense. And so what they want is an easement that's the same easement that the farmer would use to access their property. It's approximately here, so that they could access the trail. This would not be for the public. The public would access directly from the Johnston House parking lot, but it would give Mid-Penn the ability to drive their vehicles up there for security reasons, for maintenance reasons. So it's actually also a plus for the city that there's an extra set of eyes on the parcel. What the city gets for all this is an easement of approximately the same size. So this easement's approximately 30 foot wide. Again, access for the farmer, access for Mid-Penn, and along here, along Higgins Road, Post would grant a 30-foot wide easement to the city so that we could complete a Class 1 trail segment connecting Main Street to the parking lot at the Johnston House property. Right now, believe it or not, and I've noticed it, this road does get used by peds and bicyclists more than you would think. It feels quite rural. Doesn't feel like a place where pedestrians would be out walking their dog in the evening, but they do. And so the idea is adjacent to the road to build maybe a decomposed granite path that would provide a safer way and a better way for that trail to be connected between this park and Main Street where the south improvements are going on. So that's essentially the deal. The most recent change we made to the deal was we said, hey, look, you know, eventually when you put the nature trail in, that might intensify the use of the parking lot. It's used for multiple things. It's used for the Johnston House. It's used for the train depot. It's used for a community garden in the future. Now it's going to be used for a nature trail. We may have to improve it, expand it, do work on the restrooms. Mid-Penn actually agreed to amend the letter of intent and indicate that they would contribute financially to any improvements that need to be done in the future. So Mike's here to answer questions to that. We thought that was a very positive give on their part. So again, this is a triple win, and that's the first letter of intent. The easements would come later. We still have to do the paperwork. This is just a non-binding, we agree to agree, and the licenses and easements would follow suit. The second, actually, and this one's hard to see too, I should have showed this one. This does show the full property a little bit better. You can see the magnitude of the 644 acres is all this pink area, and you can actually see their proposed nature trail here. Again, would come out of the parking lot of the Johnston House, would go up in the foothills, would be a nice little walk for people. The next letter of intent is a longer term vision. It's multiple agencies. There's actually 10 agencies involved. Maybe I'll read them because I think it's one of those cool opportunities where a bunch of agencies get together and agree on something. It doesn't happen all the time. So signing this letter will be Peninsula Open Space Trust, POST, Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, Mid-Penn, the City of Redwood City, San Francisco Public Utility Commission, SFPUC, San Mateo County, the California State Coastal Conservancy, Golden Gate National Recreation Area, Coastside Land Trust, California State Parks, and the City of Half Moon Bay. So a lot of cool partners involved. Why are all those people signing agreements? So the idea here is a vision that there would be a trail that would connect the sea to the bay. So this is a long way. Parts of it are already done. If you're an avid trail user like I am, you've actually been on parts of what will be this trail. And it's a vision I think that Mid-Penn has probably had in their master plan for quite a long time, and many other partners have too. All those agencies are involved because they would have a stake in the completion of this trail. Maybe they have property that it would go through, the county, Redwood City on the bay side, the city on this side. And again, back to the coincidence of these coming together at the same time. As you can see on the map, it's conceptual in some parts, but it goes from the bay all the way up over Skyline through various properties that Mid-Penn owns, additional properties that they have more recently purchased, and there's actually a split in one of their parks where there'd be two ways to go, a northern route, say, and a southern route. I believe they have almost all the land needed for the southern route, so maybe it's just a matter of getting money and building it at some point. There's still little spots, still checkerboard spots they need here, but there would be this northern one that would come right down to the Johnston House, and that's where the two come together, as I said. So the easement that is being granted to us as part of the first letter of intent, that little section along Higgins Road is actually almost the last segment of the trail. From there, a person would cross the highway, and that's where Coastside Land Trust comes in because they have property there, and then the state, and then you're on the ocean. So again, two non-binding letters of intent, and we're asking the council to grant approval for me to sign those so we can move those two efforts forward. Be happy to take any questions, and again, Mike Williams is here.
We have a question from Council Member Penrose.
This is more of a clarification. The pedestrian trail that we're going to be putting in on Higgins Canyon Road, that will be on the south side of the road, correct?
Correct. South side.
Thank you.
Go for it.
So this this 10-partner initiative sounds like the birth of a JPA, a Joint Powers Authority.
No.
No?
Hopefully not.
I hope not.
Exactly.
Yeah, has that come up at all? Kind of like no, okay.
I'm looking at Mike, and yeah, all the details on how it comes together, I think there's been more meetings than we maybe have been involved in, and so now that they've actually approached us and said, hey, you have a very small segment of this effort, but obviously something the community's very interested in. Now that we're a signatory, or we will be hopefully, to this agreement, I think it gives us a reason to engage a little bit more, even on the parts that are not in the city of Half Moon Bay, so we can kind of see where it starts to go and how they go about implementing something so kind of audacious as this trail, and how they work together to make that happen. But I think, at some point, each agency is going to be kind of responsible for their own segment. So the segment in Half Moon Bay that we're getting the easement for today, I mean, we will build that and say, well, we did our part. So I think it'll kind of come together like that, but we'll certainly engage as that kind of, carries out over the next 10 years. This is a long-term vision.
Yeah, I think it's a great long-term vision too. I think it's a good one for the coast side, recreation, outdoor health, cycling, walking and hiking. That's the kind of thing that could be a good piece of our economy, I think. And it just goes to show. So here we have, we were talking last time about whether or not to include future trails in our bike and pedestrian master plan that weren't necessarily going to be built tomorrow. And so here it is, folks. It's a vision plan. We don't know when it's going to get built. It might be 20 years, 30 years to completion, but it's a vision, and that's the kind of thing that gets people excited and funders excited, and so it's great. I'm glad we're participating.
So does the Burley Murray one go up through Purisima before it hits Skyline? So originally I thought it was going up into Skyline.
Maybe I'll ask Mike to take that
Yeah.
question. There is a section that goes through Burley Murray. Whether that goes all the way to Skyline or hits Purisima, I'm not exactly sure.
Good evening. Mike Williams, Rural Property Manager with Mid-Peninsula Open Space District. Thank you, Mayor and council members. Yes, the northern route is anticipated to go through Purisima as well, and then join with what we call the Purisima to the Sea route, which is the southern route. We have, just adjacent to the Johnston property, worked with a private property owner who is willing to give a trail easement into Burley Murray, and then our Miramontes Ridge Open Space Preserve, which are both in the backdrop of Half Moon Bay. Interestingly enough, that property owner also owns much of the big gap between Purisima and Burley Murray. So pretty promising that he'll work with us on a trail easement there as well.
That's awesome.
It sounds wonderful.
Yes, it does.
May I have a motion?
I move we authorize the city manager to execute 2 non-binding letters of intent related to trail access, agricultural access, and future park planning at the Johnston House property.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Wait, can you go back one? Can you go back one real quick on the I was just, one more note. One more. Thank you. Yeah, right there. Thanks. Yep, good, thanks.
That's it? Okay.
Just missed one.
The next item is a consideration of support for Measure I, the Cabrillo Unified School District Parcel Tax Measure.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. At the request of Mayor Rarback, this item was added to the agenda to allow the council an opportunity to discuss adopting a resolution in support of Measure I, which was added to the November 5th, 2019 ballot by the Cabrillo Unified School District. If passed by a 2/3 vote, the measure would renew the expiring $150 education parcel tax for 8 years. There are senior citizen exemptions, Social Security exemptions, and disability exemptions. And I believe that's all I have. So with that, I will turn it over to the council for discussion. The ballot question is on the screen in front of you and up here, and you guys are welcome to discuss.
Councilmember Penrose wants to speak.
I just wanted first to say thank you to our new school superintendent for the excellent presentation that you gave along with Sophia Lane at the library about 2 weeks ago. It was a long time coming. The public is curious to know why the school needs money and has a very poor understanding of exactly what the school district needs money for. So that was an excellent presentation, and I think the beginning of a very important dialogue. I'd like the city to encourage the school district to continue keeping the public updated on what's going on. It should be something that is in everybody's information bag, that they understand that we do have a school district that is suffering and has been suffering for many years, and that as a result of that, our city suffers. School district is the future of our city, so thank you for that. I had one small question, and that was, in order to receive an exemption as a senior citizen or a disabled person or someone on Social Security, do you have to talk to the county about that? How does that happen? How do you get the exemption?
Yes, can you hear me? Thanks for asking the question, allowing me. I'm Sean McFetridge, Superintendent Cabrillo Unified. As I understand it, those exemptions roll over from the last time. So if people were exempt before, they could be exempt again, but certainly anyone who wants to have an exemption could contact us, assuming the parcel tax would pass again, the renewal.
So they would contact the school district?
That's right. And I think it says there in our resolution, actually, that you would not need to renew your exemption, that we would roll over that exemption. I understand it, and I think we would work with the county. The district would work with the county to do that and to facilitate that for anybody. But then anybody else who is able to be exempted could come in and talk to us, and we would work on that.
Okay, so if I was not exempt during the last 8 years, or however long the parcel tax lasted, I don't know that, but and I wanted to become exempt, then I would have to contact the school district.
That's my understanding, and that is what we had in the previous district where I worked, where you would just come in and fill out an exemption form, and district staff could help expedite that.
Okay, thank you.
Stay there. You have your 3 minutes of public comment. This is Sean McFetridge.
Well, if you're ready, I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We're ready.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you, City Council members, and thank you, City staff. I think City staff said it well. I've reviewed your staff report, your resolution, and the attachment, which was our own resolution. By law, I cannot advocate for or against the measure now that it is on. We cannot use district staff resources to do so. However, I do want to bring to your attention tonight, and as we did at the community meeting a few weeks back, the information on this. This is a renewal parcel tax. It is no more money than what has been paid before. Measure I represents a renewal parcel tax. It is $150 per parcel with exemptions that have already been included for seniors, for others with SSI, disability exemptions, et cetera, and contiguous parcels, as I understand it, also being exempted. The basic facts are these. Without the parcel tax, I will have to cut another $1.6 million from our budget. We are currently in a budget crisis in Cabrillo Unified School District. I don't like to admit that, but it is the truth, and I think it is important for us to be transparent and to be forthcoming about this. We need to cut, after we close the books in September with our unaudited actuals, we determined that we must cut between $1.75 million and $2.5 million in order to keep us from being taken over by the San Mateo County Office of Education. If that were to occur, Your Board of Education would be stripped of their duties, the superintendent would leave his job or her job, and you would have someone from outside the district, outside the community, coming in to run the district. You would lose local control. I think that is a concern for democratic education. So we are battling to present cuts and to present cuts to the Board of Education to the tune of $1.75 to $2.5 million that must be actionable by December. Should the parcel tax not pass, and this is just the fact, we would need to add $1.6 million to that. And because 81% or 82% of our budget is human beings, staff members, teachers, support staff, et cetera, that would mean layoffs. And as the good council member said, that does have an impact on your city, on your economy, and I would dare say the nature, the benefit of the school district does have everything to do with your property values, the future of your city. So I just want to thank you for your consideration of the resolution you have tonight. It does represent $1.6 million. There are exemptions for seniors. There are exemptions for disabilities. There are exemptions for contiguous parcels. Again, I cannot advocate for or against it, but you realize how important it is, and I wanted you to have the facts, and I wanted to thank staff and the council for considering support of the resolution tonight, and thank you.
Yeah, may I ask, before we proceed, can we get a lawyer to weigh in on this topic and just to let us know, A, what we can and cannot say, and how we can also present ourselves in the right way, and what this is from a lawyerly perspective?
Yes, so the superintendent correctly stated the law in terms of his restrictions. He is not able to advocate in favor or against a ballot measure that the school district has placed on the ballot. The city is similarly constrained, except there is one major exception, which is basically at issue tonight, which is that the council may adopt a resolution endorsing a ballot measure in an open and public forum. So because you are here, you're able to hear all sides of the issue. This item is properly before you, and I would say fairly common kind of thing for cities to do with when a school district or park district has a parcel tax on. Cities are often asked whether to endorse it or not.
And just for clarification, there is precedent for this happening in other districts as well?
Absolutely.
Robert?
Yeah, and just in terms of what I've read of reading through the entire measure, my understanding is that the money from this particular tax does not go towards construction, does not go to administrative costs. It goes entirely towards teachers. Thanks.
Anybody else?
I just want to sort of sum up that I looked into this. I saw the presentation online. I talked to some people. What's going on with Cabrillo Unified School District is really kind of existential. Loss of local control is really important. Some might not care if the county comes in and runs it, but community that doesn't value its education, its schools, its teachers, its students. I don't know what sort of values they have. I think our schools are part and parcel of, what we value and our identity, and I'm really concerned. So I'm totally in support of this measure. I understand people's reluctance to spend more money here, but this is not for construction. You can't use the bonds for non-capital expenses. It comes down to, parcel taxes basically for operations and maintenance. And if we don't do a good job at this, I'm not sure that's a community that I want to, stay in. So I'm wholeheartedly in support of this.
Anybody else?
This gentleman just pointed out there's oversight of these expenditures as well. And, the public is welcome, as I understand it, to apply for oversight positions. So.
I'm wholeheartedly in favor of this resolution. Some of you may have remembered previous bond measures that were for capital improvements. This is none of that. This is solely for operational expenses, and that's primarily going to be teacher salaries. I think it's extremely important that we support education on the coast side, and this measure is not going to make the school board or the school district solvent completely, but it's absolutely necessary. And as our city attorney has pointed out, it is okay for us to discuss the merits, and I just consider this initiative extremely important for support. May I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion for 3B for consideration adoption of a resolution supporting Measure I, the Cabrillo Unified School District Parcel Tax Measure on the November 5th, 2019 ballot.
I'll second.
I'd like to call for a roll call.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Aye.
Councilmember Penrose?
Aye.
Councilmember Reddick?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Eisen?
Aye.
Mayor Rohrbach?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the award of a construction contract for the 2019 Ocean View Park restroom replacement project.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. John Dowdy, Public Works. Pleased to be here. This is sort of Parks night, so this is kind of exciting here. And I'll kick it off. So our request tonight is approve the award of construction contract for Ocean View Park restroom replacement project. This would include authorizing the city manager to award and execute a contract with Andrini Brothers, augment the 2019-20 capital improvement budget by approximately $115,000, and approving an additional contingency amount not exceeding 10%. And I'd say the $115,000 includes the $50,686 of contingent, so it's not an addition to. So as a quick overview, I think this is a great example of how local government works and can work in a great way toward benefiting the community. Clearly, a couple of years ago, the City Council identified in your strategic objectives a desire to improve community parks and look for ways that we can address our existing parks rather than expanding and building new parks, but to really focus on those updates. You included within your capital improvement program and prioritized and funded this project, which was to focus on a number of things, but primarily to look at replacing the single restroom with a 2-restroom facility at Ocean View Park. And you also directed, and your community development department in particular, delivered to you a Parks Master Plan. And in that Parks Master Plan, it defined and refined a number of objectives for this park. And I'm happy to say that we were able to meet virtually all of these aspects or pieces of each one of these things that the master plan identified for the park. So I think that is sort of the process by which we get to good decisions, good financial decisions, and a clear understanding. And I would say this also included a great deal of work and of the Parks and Recreation Commission through the design process, and then obviously the Planning Commission as well. Forgot that didn't cover that. So again, this covers some of those issues. The Parks and Recreation Commission reviewed this twice in their meeting, and which included notice to the neighboring properties. Planning Commission issued the coastal development permit in April, and as such, we then proceeded with advertising the bid, and those were opened on September 10th, and Andrini Brothers was deemed the lowest responsive bidder at that point. I should clarify for this, because if it comes up in the context, the bid included a base bid, which was bid A, base bid, which was the restrooms, all of the site work on the flat area of the park. There was an additive bid B, which basically was the retaining wall and the chain link fence. So that is still an alternative to reject additive bid B. That was about a little over $67,000 in cost was the retaining wall. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but I wanted to put that on the table. I keep hitting the space bar, even though this is my deal. So the primary issue that we had heard in this community had been speaking to, and actually you had reached the point in this community of having a design and almost an approved project for replacing the little restroom that's right here in the middle of the green area and grassy area. It was a kind of an odd placement, to say the least, and when we went out, many of you have been to our employee recognition picnic and barbecue now, and this is always a sort of in the middle of this whole nice grassy play area for folks on that side. But this was always an issue, and it was a concern in part because you had only a single restroom, and it's pretty much run through its useful life at this point. The secondary issue, we have recently been working on the ADA transition plan, and every project and every facility is being looked at and has been analyzed, and concerns were raised that our accessibility requirements were not being met for ADA from this path of travel. So this project also offers us the opportunity to address those ADA compliant accessibility within the park, which is a very added benefit to this. And then finally, we evaluated the issues of this wood retaining wall. If you see in the first picture in the foreground, you'll see the Keystone block wall that was installed a number of years ago, probably about 7 years ago, I understand. And that, and then you see in the upper piece of that is the existing wood retaining wall. What our proposal and what the additive part of the project is to create that same basically Keystone's block wall around Alsace-Lorraine, and one, make it look consistent. Other is probably provides us at least 20 years of retention and protection there. Honestly, we don't have a clue exactly when and if that wood will fail. It could be 5, it could be 10 years. We just don't know. It's in pretty good shape, but this seemed like the opportunity to at least get a cost for that and see if we could benefit from a larger project to get a reasonable and fair price, which we believe that we did from this proposal at about $67,000. Just to a quick one, basically the restroom, based on what and I'm sorry you can't see the spot, so I'll go here. And the restroom is in the portion there toward the front of the area, and I'll put that for the audience, this area. You'll have in the area from that point, basically, wrong way. Here and below that is a new picnic area, and the barbecues will be reinstalled. So we're not getting rid of those tables and the barbecues, but we will be relocating and moving them around, and then improving the path of travel back toward Valdez. And so that's the basics. There's dealing with irrigation. There's some landscape to be removed. Much of the landscaping, irrigation, and related improvements will be handled by our in-house staff. to reduce the cost of this project down to the bare kind of minimums of what needs to be done. The restroom itself is a prefabricated restroom facility. Again, two restrooms there. It has been, this will be a special order design. This is not right off their catalog in order to deal with some of the aesthetics and deal with it. It also includes a water fountain on the front. It will also include electrical connections. So should we wish to provide more access for folks like for bouncy houses and things of that nature, there'll be the capability of doing that. And this location was chosen as an alternative by the commission as well as the community as a whole simply, and then also the mothers group and everything kind of weighed in on it as it provided the best sort of visibility from the playground and the equipment and areas to this facility. It also pushed it a little bit further away from right on top of the equipment and allowed for maximum use of the green flat play area. So it was sort of everything win on that one from what the community's perspective that we heard and came from the community process. So again, our recommendation would be to approve the contract at the $506,686, include a 10% contingency for a total addition to the budget of $115,000, meaning a total of $600,000 in fiscal year 1920 for the construction of this project. If there is a desire, I can go into the alternative, which would be rejecting the additive bid B for the retaining wall.
Could I introduce a change order, or no? You know, I think, I don't know about a water fountain, but I think it would be great to have something, you know, water so that you could, like a, fill your water bottle station?
It's a fountain and bottle filler station.
Okay. All right,
So
that's good.
that's in the package.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble following the diagram here from the aerial view. Is it this grade 8, grade out area?
The gray dotted area, kind of the
Yes.
large square, is where the picnic tables and barbecue is going to be
Okay.
relocated. The restroom itself is
Is north of
is
that?
the area just to the north of that.
Okay, so it's the one that's outlined in heavy,
Heavy
line.
outlined is the restroom facility
Right.
itself.
So there are two restrooms, and then in the middle, what is that?
There is a storage. There's a storage area there, and
Okay.
also area for the water heater and components of the facility. But it does provide a small area for utility storage, so for cleaning supplies and things of that nature. It's not
And
a large
behind
area.
that, what's happening?
There's just
north of that.
There's concrete that just wraps around the edge, but beyond that, it's just landscaping. And then you
Okay.
have the fence. Well, you have the front, end up into the front yard there if you go another 30 feet or so into the neighboring house there.
And the entrances are going to be on the south side.
We'll be on the south side facing to the park, away from the
Got it.
residents there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the property owner for that property specifically came and spoke at Parks and Recreation Commission, so.
Will one of the restrooms have a diaper changing station?
That's the intention, yes.
Anybody else? May I have a motion, please?
I move that we adopt a resolution, item 1, authorizing the city manager to award and execute a construction contract for the 2019 Ocean View Park Restroom Replacement Project, Project 610, to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Andrini Brothers of Half Moon Bay, California, in the total bid amount of $506,686, and approve an additional contingency amount not exceeding 10% or $50,686 of the contract amount, and 2, augmenting the fiscal year 2019-20 capital improvement budget by $115,000 for the Ocean View Park permanent restrooms and park improvements, total $600,000.
Second?
I second. I want a $600 bathroom, $600,000 bathroom myself. I got some improvements that need to be made, so I'm all in.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'd like to make one remark. I'm hoping that we can do something about maintaining our restrooms. I know we have added maintenance workers, but recently all of the council members, I think, and probably staff received photographs of McDutra Park restrooms and the mess in there. If we're going to build something, let's keep it up. And if that means hiring another maintenance person, I'm for that. Maybe we could talk to Mr. DeBode about increasing his crew to help us out. I don't know, but we need to do it.
And if I know this is not specifically agendized, let me just say, staff was unhappy to see that and a bit embarrassed, I have to admit. I will say this, we have responded in kind, and tomorrow the restrooms will be shut down for painting. The handrail has been already painted. I would also say that the picture probably put that in the worst possible light that you could possibly have it. What you saw was not a floor that was just a complete mess, but what you see is that is basically a floor that we always come in and repaint after the festivals over and all the rigmarole is done. So it's coming up on about 11 months short of its 12-month painting. So I also think that it's always dangerous to look at those because the trail of that also ultimately was leading to a concern about and questions about the installation of new street signs. So while I appreciate and am embarrassed actually by the condition of those to some extent, I also say after having been in them immediately from that picture in time can say that that picture did not paint the best light of what was there and dealing with it. And so again, we agree. We have to maintain what we build, and we will work to do that. The library is an example of that challenge that we're dealing with and facing every day. McDutra, all of these facilities the same way. But we are cleaning. You approved a contract with cleaning by our janitorial staff for 7 days a week there. So it's not an issue of those not being cleaned. It is also, but it is an issue of them being used a lot. And so it's a balancing act, and we will continue to do that and appreciate actually the comments and the community reaching out and telling us we're not doing an adequate job.
Yeah, I don't think it's a criticism of staff by any means for not doing the job, but the question is if there is a need for more from the council to assure that we have clean restrooms in all of our parks, then I know the council would be behind that 100%.
And I'll just leave with this. I think that you have done everything necessary to ensure that those are delivered and maintained as clean restrooms, and we thank you for that and thank Bob for allowing us to do that. We need to do a better job sometimes of just looking at the detail and focused on that. And I'm directly and most embarrassed by that myself, I look at that restroom every day from my office window. And so the fact that I had not been in there in the last couple of months to see what that looked like was a bit embarrassing for me. So I apologize to the community. And I think you've done everything in your power to make sure we have adequate staffing, financial assistance to do this. We just need to perform, and we did not fully perform then.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. The last item is the budget amendment for the Carter Park renovation project and the amendment to agreement with ELS Architecture and Urban Design Incorporated.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. It's a great opportunity to be in front of you. I'm Matthew Chittister, your Deputy City Manager. I have Karen Decker, our Senior Management Analyst in the City Manager's Office and the Project Manager for this project. And what an exciting night it is. It's been a long time coming, and we're really excited to be here before you tonight. I'm going to give you just a brief background. I think most people know this, but Carter Park is located right here on Main Street. So you have Highway 92 running west. Here's Highway 1, and here's the Main Street 92 intersection. So if you head down south on Main Street, right before you get to the bridge, you have the Stone Pine Shopping Center, and the park is right here. It is adjacent to Pillarcitos Creek, and it is depressed below the grade of the parking lot, and as you know, forms kind of a natural amphitheater adjacent to Pillarcitos Creek, and is surrounded by beautiful redwoods planted by one of our maintenance workers early on in his career. And what a legacy he's going to leave behind with this beautiful redwood grove and potentially this amazing project to go with it. So Rob Eastman, shout out to him. Good foresight. Little bit of history, background. So the potential renovation of Carter Park was identified in the Parks Master Plan, which you approved last year. And it was really specified that it had a great opportunity as a performing arts venue. We know that historically it's been used by the Shakespeare in the Park folks each August and September to do their performances. And most recently, the last 2 years, the city's done its Summers and Music Festival, which we held just a week ago. And some of you were there. We had a lot of staff. I wanted to give a brief update on that. It was a smashing success. If you make incremental progress from 1 year to another on an event like that, you're happy. Incremental doesn't describe how things went this year. We believe we had over 1,000 people attend. We had 4 different bands of very different genres, and we're grateful for the Recreation Commission for their help in finding those bands and bringing them in. We had many nonprofits there doing education and outreach and fundraising, and all were really, really grateful to participate. The Cove, a local restaurant, was there selling food and donated part of the proceeds back to the city to help with recreation programming. And we had great partners, the Boys and Girls Club and the library, who provided activities for kids and families. And there was a moment right in the middle of the afternoon, I walked out there and I just kind of stood in the middle of it and I did a 360 and it was very surreal. It was truly a community event. We had a great cross-section of ages and cultures and backgrounds there, and everybody was having a good time. And that was exactly what we needed and continue to need here in this community. Quick shout out to Eddie Bealey and our recreation staff. They put their heart and soul into this event, and it shows, and we're really grateful for their efforts. And really importantly is it demonstrates the potential for a site like this. The bands love playing there. track potentially to have construction drawings and to break ground. At this point, though, unless Karen thinks I've missed anything, we're going to turn the time over to Mark Schatz from ELS Plus and let him do a presentation on the design and the cost estimates. And Mark would like to present from the podium as well. I guess that's a good view.
Well, I feel like I'm at the Academy Awards. I like looking in the eyes of the people I'm talking to, so thank you all. Thank you, those of you who are seeing the back of my head. Thank you, Mayor Rohrbach and members of the council. I am so excited to be back here again today to be able to present our 40% package. And believe me, you're seeing just a few drawings. We have about a half-inch thick set of drawings now of this project. So the cost estimate that we had done was based on a lot of information. As you can see, we have an expanded team this time. In addition to ourselves and Calendar Landscape Architects, which is the same firm working on the bridge project, so that we could coordinate our efforts. We had a civil engineer, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. We had a specialty theater consultant, a graphic designer, an acoustical engineer, and a terrific cost estimating firm. Cynthia Madrid, the person who did the estimate, has been working with me for probably 20 years on various cost estimates, and I wouldn't be going back to her if I didn't trust her. So as Matthew said, this project began with the Parks Master Plan, which you all approved last year. And within that master plan, the improvements of Carter Park were a top priority. Key elements that were raised in the master plan and that led to the evolution of our design are habitat protection, creation of a permanent stage, permanent seating in the form of an amphitheater, improved lighting, accessible circulation, and improved signage. So working from that last year, we did our concept design work on the project, which was presented to you. We looked at two different options of how the park might be configured, where the stage would go, where the seating would go in the open lawn, and then assessed the pros and cons of each. And based on the comments we got, particularly from the Parks and Rec Commission, we determined that option one was the best, that put the stage roughly in the location of the circular stone wall that's there right now, where they build their temporary stage whenever they do the theatrical productions. I'm not going to go through this design in any detail because this you've already seen and it's now been superseded by the evolved design that's based on a lot more input from the community. But I will say that this design was presented at last year's Summer's End concert. And just to put in a pitch, my partner Jeff, who's been working on this with me the whole time, is an established bluegrass musician, and he thinks the concert would be incredible if there was some bluegrass music there. Anyways, the responses were fantastic. They were overwhelmingly positive, and people were just like, when is it going to happen? And I'm really glad to be able to say that later in tonight's speech, I will be telling you when it could happen. So this led to our being retained to do phase 2, which we're calling the 40% document package for the project. This process began with an extensive period of community outreach. First off, we met with staff, we met with council again, we met with the Park and Rec Commission again, we met with the Planning Commission and representatives of the police department. We did open community meetings. We also had a community-wide survey, which Karen led, which got the most responses of any survey that's ever been issued by the city, because we did it both in paper form and in an online form. And we were able to collate all the responses and use those in addition to the input we got from a series of focus groups and a community meeting to really understand what the community wanted and what people were afraid of with this design. And I think it's important that we got both of those things. We not only heard people's wishes, but we heard people's concerns, which enabled us through the timing of this process to begin to address those concerns so that we can do a project that not only meets the goals, but also hopefully alleviates some of the fears associated with it. So Karen's put together a great schedule of the process, and you can see it was extensive. It went over a period of months. We met with representatives of Cypress Cove Homeowners Association, Mariners Church, the owners of the Stone Pine Center, Park and Recreation Commission. We had a lot of opportunities to hear what people thought. And overall, again, just like when we showed it last year at the Summer's End Music Festival, people were really enthusiastic in their support for the project. It's more, when is it going to happen than should it happen? People want more opportunities for music performances. The music in the park, instead of at Mac Dutra, to be in a place like this, where you can really picnic and have a playground next door and have it be a family event. But they also want this park to be more. They don't want it just to be a performance venue. We got a lot of support for the idea of having a nice playground here so that kids from the families that live in the downtown area have an easily accessible place where they can play. And the people that work there and the people that live there would love the idea of picnic grounds and the amphitheater seating where they could come and bring their lunches and have a comfortable, relaxing, and beautiful place to sit and just relax, because the view into the redwood trees there is gorgeous. What were the concerns? What are always the concerns? Parking and traffic, noise, trash, and public safety were the main things that we heard, with the parking being the main issue for the residents of Cypress Cove. So that was the first issue we addressed. And a report was done by city staff. There were interns this summer who went out and counted parking spaces that were all available within a 5-minute walking distance from the site. And that was presented to you previously. But what's cool is that Jill took it upon herself last weekend at the music festival to go out and recount, was there available parking in the downtown area? And just about every block had available parking. So there were concurrent events that were going on in the city last Saturday, and there was more than adequate parking to meet the demand of those events. So what we need to do to alleviate the concerns of the neighbors is to implement policies that on large event days, there can be signs up that are temporary signs that say no parking in this area. And perhaps there's an officer there to help control the traffic to see that that's followed. The city has met already with the post office, and we can use their parking during the times that they're not open for these events. There's already an agreement in place with the Stone Pine Office Park and with the Mariners Church. So parking can be accommodated comfortably, and if worse comes to worst, we have the option of going to a place like the high school that has a large parking lot and running a shuttle service that comes. But what was great last weekend was a lot of people walked and a lot of people rode their bikes. So one of the things that came up at the Park and Rec Commission is we showed a nice big parking area for bikes, but we need to make it bigger. The second big concern that was addressed was noise. And we retained Charles Salter and Associates, which to my mind is the top acoustical engineering firm in the Bay Area. I've been working with them for over 35 years. And they did a study. They came out and measured the noise levels at one of the concerts in the park, and then it was the same night as Shakespeare in the park, so they went and did the noise level studies there, and then they computer modeled those to see, based on the position of the new stage and the location of the housing in Cypress Cove, which is the nearest residential property to it, what would the maximum noise levels be at the property line should those performances be going on. And they found that it was actually only marginally more than the ambient noise levels from traffic, wind, animals, and all of the rest that go on. But there's the possibility, you know, that if Metallica comes and plays a Summer's End music concert, it could be more than that. So to that end, the mitigations would be that, number one, in compliance with the local ordinance that says that you can't have unreasonable noise after 10 at night, the city has the option to limit performance times such that everything is complete by 10 at night. Also, part of our project, which we've priced as an alternate right now, is specialized theatrical equipment. And that includes a sound system that would be more focused speakers that direct the sound directly to the audience so that it won't dispel from the site. It's just like you can do light fixtures that have shields on the top that direct the light down so you don't get light pollution. It's possible to do the same thing with speakers now. Finally, the third concern was public safety. And in meeting with police, they believe that by activating this park more, by having more activities there during longer periods of time during the day, that will greatly improve the safety within the park, because the notion of eyes on the park is what makes it a safer place. Having a playground there means there are going to be parents down there. Having this seating that's available during lunch, there will be more people sitting there. So that will address that issue. And, you know, it's always a concern, but you have a great public safety department here who's there to help as well. The next issue that came up in the work that we did with the planning department. And we were fortunate enough to be able to do a preliminary presentation to the Planning Commission. This wasn't part of an application process, but rather it was to give them an opportunity to get an advanced screening of the project, to see it so that they could determine what their concerns would be, and we could do our best to address those concerns, and as we say, nip them in the bud before we go back with an application process. And of course, issues came up. This drawing illustrates the outline of the property of Carter Park, and what you can see from this is that actually some of the improvements related to the park aren't actually on the park property. They lie within the property of the shopping center and the office park. Also, the property line of the park sort of ends pretty close to the edge of the redwoods. The firm of H.T. Harvey was brought in to do an assessment of the riparian corridor associated with Pilarcitos Creek. And they gave us a boundary survey that showed where the edge of that corridor was. And then from that, based on coastal development guidelines, they drew a 50-foot buffer zone setback. And as it turned out, a couple portions of our project extended into that. Now I want to point out, going back to the last slide, that buffer zone extends up into the entry, drive, and parking lot for the shopping center. It extends into the office park. All of the paths coming into the park fall within that. And you are allowed to improve upon existing developed areas within the buffer zone. But we heard from people both in the audience and on the commission that if portions of the new construction of the project that weren't just improvements of the pathways extended into the buffer, it would be awfully difficult to get it passed. And as it turned out, we had two areas of conflict. As I mentioned, let me find the little button. The upper pathway into the site is already an encroachment in the buffer zone, as is the roadway that service vehicles use to get down into the site, and which we need to be able to reuse as part of our accessible ramped path into the site. But in addition, we had some playground area that was overlapping, and about 12 feet on the back of our support building for the stage extended into there. So what we realized is we had to make two changes. The first thing was that these pathway improvements would still be okay because they're improvements to paths that are already existing. But we had to relocate the playground so that it was completely clear of the buffer zone. And we had to shift the building up on the site closer, well, initially thinking it would be closer to the amphitheater, which would eat into our lawn area. But we had to move it that 12 feet. We actually moved it about 14 so that it would be clear of the edge of the buffer zone as well. what we did is we went back and we restudied the section through the amphitheater. We got rid of the walkway in the middle of it and set the height and depth of the seats such that we were able to push the amphitheater back onto the hillside slope a little bit more, maintain our full flat lawn seating area in front of the stage, squish the building a little bit in terms of its proportions so that it wasn't as deep as it was before. And we were able to fully pull the building out from within that buffer zone. And then we moved the picnic area over under the trees on the opposite side of the stage to clear up a little more area for the playground on this side so that we were able to get everything clear of the buffer. The third little piece is that we have a, whoops, I hit the wrong button. We have a solidarity trail that's just a little DG path that runs through the redwood trees with interpretive signage along it. And when we showed it to the Planning Commission, we showed a possible extension down into the trees to lead towards the area under the bridge, and they said that was a no-no, so it's gone. We do still have the little trail, but it's just a little loop through the site, more of like a little meditative trail to walk through the trees and just relax. So I want to walk you quickly through the plan and where we're at right now. You enter the site through a little improved plaza area on Main Street, walk along an improved path with low-level lighting until you arrive at this point here, which is where you connect to the accessible parking in the existing parking lot. And then you come down here and there's a stair that takes you down into the park, a second stair on the other side of the amphitheater, and a 1 in 20 ramp, which means a ramp where we don't need handrails, that does a little back and forth here to take you in. Number 11 indicates this existing roadway, which will improve the bottom of so that service vehicles can still come down, back up, turn around, and leave to both bring things for the theatrical productions and to bring landscaping equipment and other things down to the site that Rob's been using in maintaining it. The building up here is our restroom concession building. And while the bottom of it is at the grade at the park itself and the amphitheater, the top of it is at the grade of the upper path. So you can walk out on the roof and have a wonderful viewing platform. Yeah.
As you go through this, can you just give the number of the location? Because the council can't see the laser pointer.
I hate to say it, I can't read it on the slide or
I can call it out. So right now he's talking about figure 4.
Okay, I can read the big numbers on there. Sorry. So number 4, which is right here, is the restroom building. And on the roof of it, we have some green roof areas, which are there mainly to protect something that are called solar tubes. And they're little tiny skylights that have tubes connected to them that will bring abundant daylight into the bathrooms. Because the back of the bathrooms are buried into the hillside, so we can't get windows there. So we're bringing these skylights in to bring the light in. But they also create little beautiful gardens, and at the end there's a big enough platform that the theatrical folks can set their soundboard and light board there to control the site. Number 15 and 16 are the stage and the backstage building, and I'll show you a bigger plan of those. Number 13 is our playground area, and I'll show you some detail on that. And number 18 is our picnic area. Okay, so I'll move you to an enlarged plan next. And on this plan, you can see both the roof of the restroom building and the plan inside of it. And it's multiple stalled, non-gendered restrooms on each side with accessible stalls on each side. There's a concession and ticket booth in the middle. And it won't be extensive. We're not going to cook in there or anything, but it's just to sell snacks during performances. You can see our amphitheater. We can seat approximately, if people bring their little chairs, we can seat about 100 people on the lawn and then another 250 to 300 in the amphitheater. The seating of the amphitheater is intended to be a little concrete band in front with artificial turf behind. We happened to be at Stern Grove with the Park and Rec Commissioners on the day they had 5 guys with weed whackers out there trimming all the grass. And we all thought, that's not the answer. Much as we'd love natural grass there, it would have to all be irrigated and it would all have to be maintained. And in an effort to make the maintenance much easier, we're proposing the synthetic turf. So you can see the plan of the restroom building, and next to that is the roof plan of it. And then you can see the plan of the stage building, which is very simple. It's basically a large room that they can use for prop storage and stage setting up, with 2 dressing rooms off of that. And then there are side stage entries on both sides. There's a ramp to get people up to that backstage building on one side and a stair on the other. This is a section cut through it, so you can see the amphitheater coming down, and you can see what we're proposing for the stage is that you have the building, and then you have a proscenium in front that has a bar underneath the beam for hanging of lights. And then there's going to be movable fabric covers over that. This is the same kind of system they have at Stern Grove, but this is like Stern Grove off the steroids. It's a theater that backs up on the redwood trees, and it's going to be absolutely gorgeous. The bottom drawing on the left, you see scored split-face concrete block, which is what we're going to use for the walls above 30 inches. But we have a 100-year floodplain here where water will come in the winters when it's a wet winter. So we're just using poured concrete at the base of all the buildings and the stage. So you see the section through the stage building, then you see some trees, then you see board-formed concrete. So this is concrete where instead of using flat plywood to form it, we put actual boards in, and it gets a wood texture to it, even though it's natural exposed concrete. And that's going to be on the side walls of the restroom building and also on the base of the stage. The restroom building, because it's buried, our structural engineers said it was going to be less costly for us to do poured-in-place concrete than to do concrete that stepped up the hill with stepped block on top of that. So we did the front wall differently, but the back wall and the 3 side walls are concrete retaining walls. And then on the far right, you see a rust-colored metal panels. And that's what we'll use on the front of the restroom building and on the front of the stage building. And if you look at the building in elevations, it begins to recall some of the sheds and the old greenhouses and barns that you see on Highway 92 as you're driving in. And the notion of these sort of rustic forms and simple expressions of wall and proscenium set in front of the redwood trees with a performance on it, I think it's going to be incredibly dynamic. This is our pass, and we're working with the bridge team on this and what the little plaza on Main Street is going to be like, where it's going to have a concrete wall with a bench and then this sign that turns the corner that brings you into Carter Park and then points you to the garden and the amphitheater. And then the interpretive signage on the roof of the bathroom building where we have the green roofs will be similar, but we'll have a little dedication to John Carter there. And then we'll have other signs along the Solidarity Trail whose text hasn't been determined yet, but that explain a little more of the history of the parks and the community here. And of course, we're going to have all the required orientation and accessibility signage. These are our playgrounds, and this notion of the playgrounds in the trees is really exciting. But one other feature is we put a little piece of the playground on the natural slope coming down the hill, and that's what you see on the top of the page. And there's like a climbing web that the kids can climb up, or there's the kind of handholds that you have on rock climbing walls that the kids can pull their way up the hill and then scramble down. It's a fun idea. One of the park commissioners thought, maybe that's a little too much, and that area could be used for future expansion of the amphitheater seating. So we'll see moving forward, but we thought it was a fun idea. We really wanted a slide there, but it wasn't quite the right dimensions to make the slide work, and we didn't have a nice soft landing at the bottom of it. So we weren't able to pull that one off, but that was the original idea. So one of the things we have to be realistic about is that if all the funding's not available to fund the construction initially, the project might have to be phased. But I'll warn you, a phased project at the end of the day always costs substantially more than if you can build it all at once. So if you are able to get the funding together to build it all at once, it's going to be a lot more economical than if you break it down, because costs continue to escalate and you have to put in some work to make it a complete project that might have to get pulled out in the second phase. What we've proposed is that the first phase would be the path leading into the park, the restroom building, the amphitheater, the curved landscape to the right of that, and all the accessible paths and the lawn, with just a simple concrete pad where the stage would go, or maybe even a decomposed gravel pad, something that they can set temporary stages up on until the permanent stage gets built. But the seating will all go in, and the improvements to safely and accessibly bring all patrons down to the site will go in, as well as the restrooms that you're going to need to operate all this. The second phase would then be the stage and the backstage building, finally followed by the playground, the picnic area, the path through the redwoods, and all the theatrical equipment. So that brings me to the not fun part. What does it all cost? As you are all well aware, it is difficult right now to get contractors to bid on small projects on the coast. The peninsula construction scene is and has been extraordinarily busy for 5-6 years now, and it's not slowing down. So we're not seeing competitive bids. So our cost estimators put together their estimate of what the costs would be based on a construction start roughly a year from now. Okay, we want to get through next year's midsummer concert, or at Summer's End concert and Shakespeare performances, and then start construction. The top costs, which are the cost for the stage support building, the restroom concession building, and the amphitheater, and all the other site improvements, it gives you a total of around $3.3 million. That includes the escalation factor and a design contingency for the fact that our documents are only 40% complete. But on top of all of that, the estimator said we should add another 15% contingency for the fact that bid conditions aren't competitive. So that brings us to $3.8 million of construction costs. But as you know, that's not the full cost of doing a project. So in addition to the $3.8 million, there's roughly $1 million of other permit and fee costs. That's the design team fees, the other consultants such as the environmental consultants, the noise abatement study, the habitat studies H.G. Harvey's doing, and then it includes all of the city's fees, the CEQA costs, and all of that, as well as utility connections that aren't yet finalized. And then on top of that, we've recommended, because it's all new construction, a 7% change order contingency. That brings us to just slightly over $5 million. Now, there are 3 pieces of work that we broke out of the base estimate. We're proposing to do all the drawings for them, but if you can't afford them right away, these are things that we thought we might be able to easily get donated funds towards. Not easily, nothing's easy. But the theatrical sound and lighting equipment is $390,000. The playground equipment and the resilient paving underneath, that's another $210,000. And then we had talked about the idea of doing some prefabricated shade structures along the top rows of amphitheater seating that are removable so that, given the wind issues here, they don't run into trouble. I don't know if it's a good idea or not. I don't know, that sun is a big issue in that site. But it was another $45,000 for that. And what we propose is that when we put together the final bid documents, we do have those 3 aspects broken out as alternates. We looked at the schedule, and basically what we're proposing is that once we get the council approval and get the contract amended to begin the next phase of work, we would prepare our construction documents concurrently with while the environmental consultant is preparing the CEQA documentation. The CEQA documentation takes longer, but we want to be at a point that once that's approved, we're ready to go. And so we're even saying that we could do the permitting and the bidding while that's being completed. Then, at the end of that period, you have your Shakespeare in the Park and Summer's End concert, and we are ready to start construction the day after the Summer's End concert. Construction's estimated at about 7 months, with about a 2-month project closeout period, so that we will be open for next year's program, the next year's program. So the idea is to start construction end of September 2020, be ready to go by the beginning of July 2021 with new programs in the park. And here you go. Here's the vision of what it could be like from standing up at the corner of the roof of the restroom building, looking down at the actors quoting Macbeth and the audience in rapt attention. And I gotta tell you, it makes me very excited to see this, and I hope it does the same for you. So thank you for the opportunity to present. Matthew's gonna wrap up, and then I'm here for your questions.
Thank you, Mark. That was a great presentation, and obviously Mark has a passion for this, which is infectious, and almost brings me to tears during a presentation at a council meeting. That's pretty good. A couple of other things to cover. As Mark pointed out, there's still many steps to go. The next steps in this project, if you choose to move forward, would be first and foremost to amend the contract with ELS to complete the construction drawings. And what that will get us is the final design, which will include bid specifications. That will get us ready to go out and bid this project for construction. At the same time, staff would continue to work with our other consultants on the entitlement process, and you've already seen the schedule, and you can see how that all plays out together. And based on those dollar amounts, a year of fundraising and working with the community is not a bad thing. Obviously, this is an expensive project, and it's not something I think the city can take on its own. And so we had a long discussion about this at the Recreation Commission last week, and we'll probably after tonight schedule this for a future meeting to really talk about how we and the Friends of Parks and Rec can really put a full court press on this and find folks that really want to contribute and make this happen. I will also say that earlier this year, Karen and our city engineer Maz worked really hard on an application for some Prop 68 funds, over $4 million we've requested. We don't know how competitive we'll be, but obviously that would be a game changer here. It would really get us close to what we need. So we're excited to find out about that. We'll know more about that later this calendar year. And then, of course, if things move forward, we could break ground in the fall and be ready for performances the very next year. And I think that's the nice thing is that schedule is something we can just apply to any year depending on when we can get the funding together. It allows the events that are already scheduled there to move forward and construction to happen when we don't have things regularly scheduled. I did want to just go through the budget one more time just so that you're really clear about the numbers. I know there was lots of different types of numbers in the staff report, and it might have been a little bit confusing, so I wanted to go through it one more time. So right now, we have 40% drawings and cost estimates. All of our costs to date for all of that work that's already happened is $239,000. In order to finish the design with the LS and to complete all of the environmental work and the entitlements, it will take another $289,000. So in order to get this project shovel ready, we're looking at a budget of $530,000. We also recognize that it's Half Moon Bay, we're in the coastal zone, there's the habitat nearby. There could be a lot of things that come out of left field, and we recommend some sort of contingency in the budget to address issues that might come up. At 7%, that's $35,000. That basically takes the project to a little bit under $600,000. You have already budgeted between fiscal year 2018-19 and this fiscal year in the capital budget, $465,000. So one of the recommendations tonight is to dedicate another $100,000 from the general fund toward the project to get us through the construction drawings. And what that will do is it will put us in the best position to go out and solicit donations, to apply for grants, really be committed to this so that we can now go out and ask for help to make this happen. The other thing that will have to happen, and this is contained within that funding I just described, and that's where this gets a little confusing, is we're recommending that we amend the contract with ELS to pay for those drawings with that budget that we're recommending you amend. So right now, we had an initial budget or a contract with ELS that you approved back in March for $170,000. We augmented that in August with another $11,000 to do the sound study based on the feedback we got from the community. So our current contract and cost to date with ELS is $181,272. We'll need an additional $269,000 to complete the design and get the bid specifications. So the total contract we need all in with ELS is $450,272. Again, this is not in addition to the budget that I just shared. This is contained within it, but it's two different actions. It's modifying our internal budget for the CIP and then allowing the city manager to contract for these additional services within that budget. And that brings us to our recommendation. So staff recommends that you approve an amendment to the budget by another $100,000. And so for this fiscal year, a total of $400,000 in the CIP. And then authorizing the city manager to enter into an amendment with ELS Architectures for an additional $269,000, which would allow them to move forward with construction drawings. And with that, we're happy to take any comments, questions. Mark is here, and we're interested in your thoughts.
A few questions. You want to start? Yeah, go ahead.
You go.
I have two questions. So one will be for Mark. So you don't have to be here forever, but by the way, that was an incredibly eloquent presentation.
Thank you.
I was just mesmerized listening to how you describe things and the terms you use. Appreciate it. You're an artist. One of the things I was curious about was, it's in a floodplain, it's a bowl, we've got a creek that can flood, and of course, one of my pet questions always is, what do you think about drainage issues? I haven't seen it showed up in any of the plans here, so I always wonder.
There is. What you haven't seen was the full set of consultant drawings, and BKF engineers are our civil engineers. They're a top-rate firm headquartered in Redwood City. That's going to be one of their big issues. I mean, this is a hard site because, for example, the sewage has to get pumped. We have a force pump to take it up to the level of the parking lot where the nearest sanitary line is. Site drainage is going to be a key issue, and the reality is it's going to flood. Typically, it's less than 18 inches, but on occasion it's more. And so the stage, coincidentally, the Shakespeare Company wants a 30-inch high stage. So that's where we're putting it. It does have a wood deck because they need something they can nail into, but we'll use a type of wood that can withstand getting wet. The rest of it's concrete and won't be impacted. The restrooms, water will seep in under the doors. So we'll do everything we can to minimize that, but the building itself is pretty bulletproof, and it's concrete and concrete block, and that's not going to get damaged, and the fixtures themselves aren't going to get damaged. So we are designing with the knowledge in front of us that there will be flooding at the site, and that these buildings are designed to withstand that.
Because that'll also impact usage, in terms of the lawn areas. And the reason I'm asking is I remember during the first end of summer concert, remember we had really late rains into May and June, and there was a lot of mud. So I'd be interested in what extra costs eventually come up, for good drainage. Like you said, you can't prevent all flooding, but estimates into when, which areas of the park and how much of it can be used in medium to adverse conditions if there was flooding and late rain, just so we know what that would look like. So that's one question for you, and then as we get into it, we'd love to hear from folks on what are the prospects for, raising eventual $6 million that we need. Because I'm curious, I know this process, first time I'd be really thinking through all the elements of this and grants and community funding, so I'd be interested in hearing from everyone what you think about that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure this is an appropriate question, but I'll ask it anyway. Since we can count on some flooding, we know already we have mud, so we know we've got excess water there. Is there any way we could design something to collect that water for reuse?
The interesting thing is, in most of the projects I've seen where we've done that, it's used fairly close to when it's collected. So there is a collection tank. It gets the water, it's used for flushing toilets, for example, but pretty soon thereafter. The bulk of the water here is going to come when the park's not heavily used, and I don't know how long the water can sit there without becoming a mosquito haven in those tanks. So I wouldn't want to do anything that would, exponentially increase the mosquito population, because I'm a mosquito magnet. And, I think that would be a mistake. But it's worth investigating. I think it's a brilliant idea, honestly.
My feeling is that, it is at the forefront of what we have to do with climate change anyway, with our groundwater. And this may be, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but a way to obtain grant money to do some sort of a project that would be recycling water. I thought.
Yeah, like I said, to me, it's just a question of the timing of when you collect the water versus when you use the water. I mean, we could use it for irrigation probably too, but I don't know what the impacts of having the water sit in the tank are.
I think you can put little things in them that eat mosquitoes.
Right on. No, also any kind of other pollution that could get into the water.
And we could consult with our mosquito abatement folks, but even things as simple as charcoal in the water will keep mosquitoes out. Yeah.
Debbie, you want?
I don't have any questions, but I have comments, so I'm deferring to people with questions at this point.
I'll go for a couple questions. So the fake grass, I forgot what you called that, but the artificial turf. So in our community, we have a couple of different artificial turf areas. One of which is recycled rubber, thank you. And I would imagine people will be eating and bringing food to that area as well. And I'm just curious to know if the toxicity of that surface, and what, if somebody puts their hand down, are they going to get some of that toxicity in their hand, or even, those rubber pieces, and then put it into their food?
Bless you.
Haven't looked into that yet.
Okay.
I'll put it down as a concern to be addressed. I know, for example, my son's been out of high school for a while, but while he was there playing lacrosse, they went to synthetic turf on all the playing fields because they're blue like Boise State. And there were never any concerns or issues around any of that. And I would think, when kids fall face first, get a mouthful of turf, that would be more serious than what the kind of things we're talking about here.
Yes.
So I'm sure there's been some research done on it.
I think
and I will have our landscape guys look into it.
Which also raises the question if, I assume we'll be allowing dogs in the park, so I'm not sure what that turf, how it interacts.
I will say, we've talked this over quite a bit, and the installation of a turf sports field is very different than decorative turf and this type of installation. I don't think it's going to be what you're used to.
All right, cool.
But we'll certainly look into it more.
Yeah, because it doesn't need the cushion and everything, which
Exactly.
is where
Makes
the
sense.
rubber chips typically are, is to provide the cushioning under it.
Okay. And then funding options was also on mine. And so I saw you had some variations of different signs to kind of lead toward the park. I don't know if you guys, if that's been talked about yet, to be able to put other people's names on, and kind of like the same way we did with the library, we can sponsor different things, because I think eventually we should try to get into that.
I'm the king of dedication opportunities.
All right,
I
cool.
designed Marin Jewish Community Center. There's like 1,000
Yeah,
names.
yeah, I'd like that. I'd like that. And then my question was construction during the wet season. What's your general thoughts on that? I figure you must know that much better than I do, so.
I've lived through it many times, and, you know, I hate to say it, drought years are terrible, but boy, are they great for construction. Belmont Library, we did the trench to replace a 36-inch storm drain line that went right under where the building was going, and then we had a Halloween rain that year, and I was up all night panicking, and thankfully everything was okay. I've been on sites where they've had to put soil amendments in to get the trucks on the site. We're not talking huge amounts of construction here, but it's mostly earthwork, so it will be impacted by the rain. That's why we're showing a 7-month schedule instead of a 4-month schedule, because this amount of construction if it was starting in March, would probably be 4 to 5 months. So we added a big cushion in to account for the fact that there's going to be rain days. And it's not just the day it rains. You've got to be able to move heavy equipment on the site afterwards.
That's accounted for. Good, thank you. And then the last thing, so obviously, you know, big numbers we're talking about in terms of budgetary needs. And I'm not sure, are you planning to give an estimate of what it would be, or I'm not sure if I missed it, if we do go the phasing route, just to give a sense of the difference cost-ish that we'd be facing so we can kind of make that decision?
We didn't do that, and we'd have to pay our estimators a little more to do it, because we'd have to clearly define what was in each phase, and it's not as simple as that, because you have to then say, okay, what temporary work do you put in at the end of phase 1, at the end of phase 2, and then what does it cost to go back and rework those areas? So there is some effort involved in doing that. If the determination's made that we want the construction's drawings to be done based on phased construction, you know, we'll have a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 set of documents, and the next estimate would be based on that. But, you know, those are the incremental costs up front. The real impact on cost is that delaying the work means if you build it in phases, it's not just that costs have escalated, but you have new setup takedown charges for the general contractor. And that's why, you know, it's always tough. What we've done instead on some projects, although there's no interior finishes in this project. You know, I've done a lot of projects where we shell out space, like the Dublin Library. We built an extra 10,000 square feet, but we shelled it. We didn't finish it out. And now they came back 10 years, 15 years later and finished it. That's different than here. And that doesn't make sense on this project.
And I think we obviously want to approach this initially, especially with fundraising and all that the best case scenario would be, let's get this thing built all at once. I think when we start looking at phasing, we're also going to be looking at like donations to cover phases separate. I think we really want to approach it first. Can we raise the money, right, all at once? Even if it means we wait another year to do the construction, if it looks like we've got momentum to raise the funds, that's probably the better approach, and do it all at once.
All right, good, those are my questions.
Debbie, you had a comment?
I'm just giddy with excitement.
Yay.
You know, so excited. I think it's just it's a wonderful, wonderful visionary project, and that we're moving forward, I think, relatively quickly. If somebody who does projects, I think we've been moving fairly expeditiously, and we're going to be shovel-ready. We'll have lots of tools to take to grant funders. I think we're going to be in a really good spot, you know, pretty quickly, and I'm really happy about it. And I just want to ruminate for a second. So I was thinking, you know, earlier we had a presentation about the Johnston House and the potential for, you know, trails and trailheads and things there. So, you know, with John Carter Park at one end of Main Street and the Johnston House Community Park at the other, you know, we have a potential to have a vision for Main Street that links it all together, you know? We need to think big here, so. 5 million is big, but let's think even bigger, so. And I just wanted to say that I think it's a good project for grant funding because grant funders love multi-benefit, multi-purpose projects. And that's exactly what we have here. You know, we have recreation, we have culture, we have art, we have nature, we have interpretive signage, so in education, you know, it really is like a community hub. And I think it'll be very attractive to funders. So I think that's, again, just very, very exciting. And thank you, Mark, for a wonderful presentation. Very nice done. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. It really sounds exciting. May I have a motion?
Let's see, where is this one? Could you bring the motion up on the presentation? No, you got it. You gonna do it?
All right, so I'd like to make a recommendation to adopt a resolution approving an amendment to the full year 2019-2020 capital improvement plan budget and augmentation of the Carter Park Improvement Project line item in the amount of an additional $100,000 to be transferred from the general fund for a total amount of $400,000, and authorizing the city manager to execute an amendment to the agreement with ELS Architecture and Urban Design, ELS Plus, increasing the budget by $269,000 to a total amount of $450,272 for completion of construction documents and bid specifications for the Carter Park renovation project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you very much, and we're excited to move this forward. I do want to comment, you know, as Councilwoman Ruddick pointed out, this really has moved along really well, and that speaks to staff. Karen Decker, we assigned this to her right out of the gate, and this takes daily work to push it along. It is very easy for something like this to just kind of fall to the bottom of the priorities, and Karen's really worked on it, and we're really appreciative of her and, of course, ELS Plus for their work in Public Works and the work we've done with them on this. So thank you for your support, and thank them.
You, Karen.
Go, Karen.
Great. Good job, everybody.
Are there any city commission or committee updates?
Matthew, I think you still might be up. Commission reports? If you have any.
It'll be brief. We did meet as a Recreation Commission last week. Had a good meeting. We had the new executive director of the Boys and Girls Club come and make a presentation, and our commissioners were able to have a conversation with her, a little bit of a Q&A, and talk about opportunities for partnerships. And you know, we've really forged, I think, a great partnership with them already. We do a lot of events with them, and I think that's only going to move forward. And one of the topics they talked about was these facilities that the school district has, that the Boys and Girls Club has been a partner with, how the city can partner as well. And in that note, in our meeting in October, we'll have our superintendent coming to meet with the Recreation Commission and talk about some of those opportunities. So I think we're doing a lot of great work partnering with other agencies, and we really try hard to have these other agencies come to the meetings and speak. We also had the Friends of Park and Recreation do their monthly report and talk about their fundraising efforts around the pool. And one of the topics they talked about with the commission was, you know, what other projects are you working on? And they're basically waiting for us to tell them. And our next meeting will let them know this is the project. We didn't want to count our eggs before they hatched, but now that you've approved moving this forward, I think they're going to put together a special subcommittee from their team to really put a full court press on this. And you know, I think this project is really ready to make, you know, to happen here in this community, and I think they can be a great partner of ours. And then, of course, the main topic was kind of a sneak preview of this presentation, and it allowed us to get some more feedback from the Recreation Commission. The main topic in October is going to be a follow-up on the Poplar Gateways project. So Public Works and Community Development will be there, and they'll be presenting the plan and doing a little bit of public workshop. And there'll be more to come on that, but that will be a really big meeting. And then looking forward, the commission actually canceled the November and December meetings because the November meeting falls the night before Thanksgiving and the December meeting falls on Christmas Day. Instead, we plan to schedule a meeting likely December 11th as kind of a middle ground, and there will be some follow-up on Poplar Gateways and then any other projects we need to wrap up before the end of the calendar year. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Are there any other commission or committee updates? No. Possible agenda items in the future, council? City council reports. This meeting is adjourned.
Well done.